Listen closely. Sometimes the stories that haunt us most aren't about monsters in the dark, but the shadows lurking in plain sight, woven into the fabric of our communities. The case of Liam Vance was closed, neatly filed away. But for his sister, the silence left behind was more deafening than the scream that echoed through Maplewood Park that summer night. This is the story of what happens when grief refuses to be silenced, and a quiet quest for truth pries open a wound the world preferred to leave undisturbed. Part 1. The silence after the scream. The city of Sterling, Ohio, had a way of feeling both bustling and utterly still, depending on which street you walked down. For the residents living near Maplewood Park, that early summer evening 2 years ago, the stillness shattered in an instant. Sirens arrived first, their wails cutting through the humid air, followed by the flashing blue and red lights that painted the mature oaks and manicured grass in frantic, strobing colors. The news spread quickly, a sickening current through the neighborhood. A boy had been stabbed. Liam Vance was 16, full of awkward grace and a laugh that could genuinely brighten a room. He wasn't known for trouble. He played pickup basketball, worked part-time at the local diner, and somehow maintained decent grades despite spending hours tinkering with old electronics in his garage. His death, in the heart of their seemingly peaceful park, felt like a brutal, senseless violation of everything Sterling thought it was. The initial investigation was swift, or at least appeared that way to the public. 2 teenagers, barely older than Liam, were apprehended within days. There were witnesses, vague and shaken, who spoke of an argument, a quick, brutal escalation, and the flash of metal. The narrative solidified. A petty dispute, youth violence spiraling out of control, another tragic headline. The community grieved, held vigils, and then, slowly, began the difficult process of trying to forget, to return to that illusion of quiet normalcy. Liam's parents were adrift in their sorrow, a silence settling over their home that was heavier than any noise. But his older sister, Maya, then 24, found herself caught in a different kind of current. The initial shock gave way to a hollow ache, and beneath the ache, a persistent, low hum of unease. She attended the court hearings, watched the faces of the 2 boys, heard the clipped testimony and the pronouncements of guilt. They were convicted, sentenced. Justice, in the eyes of the law, had been served. A few weeks after the funeral, Maya sat with her friend Chloe on her porch swing, the evening air thick and still. "Are you doing okay, Maya?" Chloe asked softly. Maya hugged her knees, staring out at the quiet street. "I don't know, Chloe. I feel like I'm supposed to be. The police caught them. They're in prison." "It's over." "But doesn't feel over?" "No," Maya admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "It feels wrong. Incomplete. Like looking at a puzzle with pieces missing important pieces." Chloe was quiet for a moment. "Missing how?" "I don't know," Maya exclaimed, a sudden rush of frustration in her tone. "Just Liam and those boys. The whole story. It doesn't fit. Liam wasn't looking for a fight. He avoided confrontation. And those kids, they seemed so young, so scared in court. Could they really have just snapped like that over nothing?" The news said it was a dispute, Chloe offered tentatively. "Yeah, but what kind of dispute? No one ever said. No one knew. And Liam, he was acting weird before. Nervous. Like he was waiting for something, dreading something." Maya shook her head. "It just feels too simple. Too quick. Like everyone was in a hurry to close the book." Yet, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that the story she'd been told, the story the city had accepted, was incomplete. There were small details, fragments of conversations, glances she'd caught that didn't fit neatly into the simple narrative of a random fight. Her brother was dead, yes, and 2 boys were in prison. But the silence in their home and the lingering questions in her mind whispered that something fundamental, something crucial, had been missed. The wound was closed on the surface, but deep beneath, it festered. Part 2. The cracks in the veneer. 2 years had passed since Liam's death. Sterling City had moved on, or pretended to. Maplewood Park was still used. Children played near the spot where Liam fell. The grass long since replaced, the memory smoothed over like a scar. Maya Vance, however, remained tethered to that night. She had tried to return to her life, her job, her friends, but the hum of unease had grown into a persistent, low-grade fever. She read every news report, every article, not just about Liam, but about other incidents of youth violence, searching for patterns for understanding. The official police file, dense with jargon and witness statements, offered no comfort. It simply reiterated the established facts. 2 perpetrators, 1 victim, a tragic, motiveless act. One drizzly spring afternoon, Maya sat in a coffee shop, scanning local online news archives. She stumbled upon an article by Sarah Jensen, a journalist known for her in-depth features on social issues in the city. The piece wasn't about Liam, but about the increasing challenges faced by teenagers in underprivileged neighborhoods. Lack of after-school programs, the pull of street life, the insidious influence of certain online spaces. It resonated with Maya, touching on aspects of her brother's life and the lives of the boys who killed him that the official narrative had ignored. Impulsively, Maya reached out to Sarah. She didn't expect a response, but a few days later, Sarah agreed to meet. They sat in a quiet corner of the coffee shop, the clatter of mugs and the murmur of conversations a distant backdrop to the raw pain in Maya's voice. "Thank you for meeting me, Ms. Jensen," Maya said, her hands twisting a napkin. Sarah offered a kind smile. "Please call me Sarah. And thank you for reaching out. Your email, it was very moving. Break time equals 0. 7s// I don't even know if you can help," Maya confessed. "It was a long time ago now. The police closed the case. But I read your article about the kids struggling in the city, and it made me think maybe you'd understand that there's more to these stories than just what happens on the street." "I try to," Sarah said, leaning forward slightly. "You mentioned your brother's death. Liam Vance." "Yes. He was the one killed in Maplewood Park 2 years ago." Maya's voice trembled slightly. "They caught the 2 boys, Marcus Riley and Damian Hayes. They're in prison." "I remember the case," Sarah said. "It was devastating for the city." "It devastated my family," Maya said, her gaze distant. "And it still doesn't make sense to me. Everyone calls it a random act, a fight that went wrong. But Liam wasn't like that. He wasn't confrontational. He was scared in the weeks before. He mentioned something about a favor, something he didn't want to do for someone. He wouldn't tell me who. He just said he owed them, and he had to meet them." Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. "He said he owed someone and had to meet them?" "Yes." In the park, Maya confirmed, the detail hanging heavy in the air. "He said it casually, trying to make it sound like nothing, but his hand was shaking. It was maybe 2 weeks before that night." "This wasn't in any of the reports," Sarah said, her journalist's instinct kicking in. "No, I didn't even think it was important at the time," Maya admitted. Just Liam being dramatic, maybe? But after everything, it keeps coming back to me. What if he wasn't just in the park randomly? What if he was there to meet this person? And what if Marcus and Damien were involved with whoever this was? Sarah picked up her pen, though her notebook remained closed. Maya, if Liam was meeting someone, if he felt he owed someone, that changes the context entirely. That's not a random dispute. That suggests a pre-existing connection, maybe something he was pressured into. That's what I think, Maya said, her voice gaining a desperate edge. But the police just focused on the fight. They said the witnesses saw them arguing. Witnesses can be unreliable, especially under stress, Sarah murmured. And they might have only seen the end of the interaction. She looked at Maya, saw the years of unresolved pain in her eyes. Okay, Maya, I can't promise anything, but I'll look into it. This detail about Liam owing someone, it's significant. It needs to be explored. Later that day, Sarah sat across from her editor, Mark Jenkins, in his cluttered office. So, you want to revisit the Liam Vance case? Mark asked, leaning back in his chair. That's 2 years old, Sarah. The boys are convicted, serving time. It's a done deal. Maya Vance, Liam's sister, contacted me, Sarah explained. She brought up something new, something that wasn't in the original reports. Liam was apparently meeting someone in the park that night, someone he felt he owed a favor to. He was scared about it. Mark frowned. A favor? Owed someone? What does that mean? That's what I need to find out, Sarah said. But if it's true, it means his death wasn't just a random act of violence stemming from a spontaneous argument between strangers. It means he was there for a reason, connected to someone or something else. Marcus Riley and Damian Hayes might not have been the only ones involved, or maybe they weren't the instigators. You're suggesting a cold case got it wrong? Mark asked, skepticism in his voice. That's a big claim, Sarah. You could open a real can of worms, and it could be dangerous. I know the risks, Sarah said, her gaze steady. But if there's a chance the full truth didn't come out, especially if it involves kids being pressured or exploited, I think it's a story we have a responsibility to pursue. Maya deserves to know the truth, and the city needs to understand the full picture of what happened that night, not just the convenient summary. Mark was quiet for a moment, tapping his pen against his desk. He respected Sarah's instincts. She had a nose for stories that mattered. All right, Sarah, you have limited resources. This isn't a primary focus, but poke around. See what you can find about this favor and who Liam might have been connected to. Be careful. And if you find anything significant, anything concrete that contradicts the official record, you come straight to me. A journalist's instinct, a quiet bell of doubt, began to toll in Sarah's mind. She looked at Maya, saw the years of unresolved pain in her eyes, and made a decision. The closed case of Liam Vance was about to be reopened, not by the police, but by a sister's love and a journalist's curiosity. Part 3. Navigating the undercurrents, Sarah Jensen began her investigation quietly. She revisited old news articles, police press releases, and court transcripts. The official story held firm on paper. The two convicted teenagers, 18-year-old Marcus Ghost Riley and 17-year-old Damien Shadow Hayes, both pleaded guilty to lesser charges of manslaughter, avoiding a more serious murder trial, a detail Maya had always found perplexing. Their plea deal hinged on immediate cooperation, painting a picture of a confrontation over a perceived insult that turned fatal. Sarah started by trying to speak to people in the neighborhood where Marcus and Damien grew up. This was tougher territory than she was used to. Doors were closed. Questions met with wary silence or outright hostility. She approached a small corner store, its window displaying faded flyers. Inside, an elderly woman with sharp eyes watched her from behind the counter. Sarah bought a bottle of water. "Excuse me," Sarah said, trying to sound casual. "I'm a journalist. I'm doing some follow-up reporting on the incident in Maplewood Park a couple of years ago." "The Vance boy?" The woman's expression immediately hardened. "That was finished. Those boys are paying." "I understand," Sarah said gently, "but I was hoping to understand more about the neighborhood, about what life is like for the young people here. Marcus Riley and Damian Hayes, they grew up around here, didn't they?" "Lots of kids grow up around here," the woman said flatly, wiping the counter slowly. "Were they known for trouble?" Sarah pressed. The woman finally met her gaze, a mixture of sadness and weariness in her eyes. They were kids, like all the others, trying to get by. Sometimes they made bad choices. Sometimes choices were made for them. "Choices made for them?" Sarah prompted, sensing a flicker of something beneath the surface. The woman looked away, back at the counter. "Just trying to survive, reporter. That's all any of them are doing. Don't come around here stirring up dust." She turned her back, ending the conversation. Sarah learned that Ghost and Shadow weren't just nicknames. They were identities tied to a loose network of teenagers and young adults involved in minor crimes, petty theft, vandalism, delivering packages for others. They weren't a formal gang in the traditional sense, but a fluid group bound by circumstance and a shared distrust of the outside world. She managed to track down a youth outreach worker, a tired-looking man named Robert who ran a small, underfunded community center. "Those kids, Marcus and Damian. I knew them," Robert said, sighing. "Good kids, deep down. Just no options, no opportunities. The system failed them long before that night." "Were they involved in anything organized?" Sarah asked. "Like running things for someone older?" Robert hesitated. "There's influences. People who see these kids as disposable. They use them for small stuff, deliveries, keeping watch, keeps their own hands clean." "Was there someone specific?" Sarah pushed. "Someone they answered to?" Robert ran a hand over his face. "Look, reporter, this neighborhood has eyes and ears. Talking about that stuff can get you hurt. And it won't help Marcus and Damian now. They're gone. But if they were pressured, if they weren't fully responsible." "They're responsible for their actions," Robert interrupted, his voice firm. "But were they put in a position where those actions felt like the only choice?" "Absolutely. These kids are desperate. They're looking for money, for protection, for a place to belong. Someone comes along and offers them that. It's hard to say no." Sarah tried to interview Marcus and Damian in prison, but her requests were denied. She then sought out their families, finding only a weary resignation and a refusal to discuss the details of that night. She met with Maya again, sifting through old memories. "Try to think, Maya," Sarah urged softly. "Did Liam ever mention anyone specific? A name, a nickname? Anyone he seemed afraid of or tried to avoid?" Maya closed her eyes, picturing her brother. He was private about a lot of things, especially in that last month. He'd just disappear into his room with his electronics. But he was always online. Gaming, social media. "What about that phone?" Sarah asked. "The one he suddenly had? Did he ever say where he got it?" "No," Maya said, frustrated. "He just showed up with it. Said he traded some old tech for it. It seemed better than his old one. He was always on it, texting." Did he ever mention meeting people he met online? Sometimes, Maya recalled. For trading parts, mostly, he'd go to different places. But he never seemed nervous about those. This was different. This favor felt heavy. Yet, the more Sarah dug, the more inconsistencies she found. A witness who had initially told police the fight seemed planned, not spontaneous, later recanted, claiming they were mistaken. A security camera angle from a nearby building, initially deemed useless, showed movement in the periphery just before the incident, a figure ducking out of view. The police report noted it but didn't pursue it further. She made contact with a young officer in the tech division, someone named Officer Chun, who had expressed dissatisfaction with how under-resourced and overwhelmed the cold case unit was. "Hey, Officer Chun," Sarah said into the phone. "Sarah Jensen from the Herald. You got a minute?" "Hey, Sarah. What's up?" Chen's voice was guarded. "I'm looking into the Vance case again," Sarah said. "Specifically, I'm trying to trace activity on a burner phone Liam might have had shortly before he died." There was a pause on the other end. "The Vance case? That's closed, Sarah." I know, Sarah said quickly. "I'm not asking you to do anything official, just unofficially. Is there any way to cross-reference this number with anything in old, maybe unfiled, reports? Any known associates of the two convicted kids? Anyone who used burner phones associated with that part of town?" Chin sighed. "Sarah, you're asking me to stick my neck out." "I understand the risk," Sarah said, "but I have reason to believe Liam's death wasn't what the public was told. There might be someone else involved, someone operating behind the scenes. If that's true, those kids are in prison, and the real problem is still out there." Another longer pause. "Send me the number. Don't tell anyone I'm looking. If I find anything, I'll find a way to let you know. But seriously, Sarah, be careful. You start digging into things people want buried, you could get hurt." The threat started subtly. Anonymous online messages, then a slashed tire on Sarah's car. Someone didn't want her asking questions. She called Mark, her editor, late one night. "Mark, I think I'm getting close to something," Sarah said, her voice low. "But someone is trying to scare me off. My car tire was slashed tonight." "What? Are you okay?" Mark's voice was sharp with concern. "I'm fine. It was just a tire," Sarah said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "But it feels like a warning. Break time equals 0. 3S// I think I'm getting close to finding out who Liam was supposed to meet and who might have been controlling Marcus and Damien." "Sarah, if you're getting threats, maybe it's time to back off and bring this to the police," Mark urged. "And tell them what? That a cold case might be wrong because a sister has a gut feeling and my tire got slashed?" Sarah scoffed. "They tell me I'm being paranoid. I need more, Mark. I need proof." "Proof or no proof, your safety comes first," Mark insisted. "Be extremely careful, Sarah. If anything else happens, anything at all, we go straight to the authorities. Promise me." "I promise," Sarah said, though she wasn't entirely sure she meant it. She felt the weight of Maya's hope, the danger in stirring a pot that powerful people wanted to keep covered, and the chilling sense that the two teenagers in prison were perhaps just the visible tip of a much larger, darker iceberg. She was no longer just reporting a story. She was navigating treacherous undercurrents. Part 4. The weight of a secret. Sarah cross-referenced the encrypted messages from Liam's mysterious phone with no numbers associated with the fringes of the network Marcus and Damien belonged to. Officer Chun, working cautiously and off the books, managed to link the number to a series of abandoned properties and prepaid burner phones, all pointing back to a specific area of the city and a pattern of usage that indicated low-level criminal activity. One number pinged, linked to a burner phone frequently used in communications related to low-level drug deals and fencing stolen goods. This led her to a name whispered on the streets, someone known only as the Collector. She met with Officer Chin again, this time in a quiet diner on the outskirts of town. "I found something," Chun said, sliding a small, encrypted USB drive across the table. "It's from an old server seized in a bust unrelated to Vance, but it had data from burner phones, including the one you gave me. It was used by someone we think is the Collector. Mostly encrypted traffic, but some metadata survived." "Can you decrypt it?" Sarah asked, her heart pounding. "Some of it," Chun said. "Enough to get a picture. He uses these kids like disposable couriers. Sets up meetings, sends instructions. The communications often stop right after a job. Like this one." He gestured to the USB drive. "Communications with that number you gave me stopped the night Vance died." "Was there anything about Maplewood Park? About Liam?" She nodded slowly. "There are messages setting up a pickup in Maplewood Park that night. And later, a tense exchange. The package wasn't secured. The runner resisted. And then, instructions on what to do next. For Marcus and Damien." Sarah felt a chill trace down her spine. "Instructions? About the stabbing?" "Not explicitly," Chin said, his voice low, "but instructions on how to handle the police. Cooperate just enough. Keep my name out of it. Take the hit, and you'll be looked after." It implies he was pulling the strings. Using a contact in the police department's tech division, the young officer who felt similarly frustrated by the cold case unit's lack of resources, Sarah managed to uncover archived communications tied to the Collector. She found messages from the days leading up to Liam's death. They weren't addressed to Liam directly, but mention a package and a pickup in Maplewood Park on the night of the stabbing. There is also a tense exchange about a change of plan, a failure to follow instructions. The turning point came when Sarah found a discarded, damaged hard drive in a dumpster behind a building linked to the Collector. It contained encrypted files, and with the help of Officer Chun and his contacts, she managed to decrypt them. The files revealed a horrifying truth. Liam Vance wasn't a random victim of a senseless fight. He had been recruited by the Collector through online channels, tasked with picking up a package, likely drugs or stolen goods, in the park. Marcus and Damien weren't just random teenagers. They were the Collector's enforcers sent to meet Liam. The messages detailed the botched transaction. Liam, perhaps getting cold feet or recognizing something was wrong, had hesitated, argued. The order from the Collector was clear. Secure the package by any means necessary. Marcus and Damien, acting on instruction and under pressure, had escalated the situation far beyond what they intended. The stabbing wasn't a spontaneous act of rage. It was the horrific outcome of a prearranged, criminal transaction gone wrong, orchestrated by someone who wasn't even present. The hard drive also contained a frantic exchange after the stabbing, where the Collector instructed Marcus and Damien on what to say, how to cooperate with the police just enough to take the fall but keep him out of it. Their guilty pleas weren't just about avoiding harsher sentences. They were about protecting the person who held power over them, bound by a code of silence reinforced by fear. The discovery hit Sarah with the force of a physical blow. The simple tragedy the city had accepted was a complex, chilling crime rooted in exploitation and control. Liam wasn't just a victim of youth violence. He was a victim of a calculated criminal operation that preyed on vulnerability. The implications were staggering. Two teenagers were serving time for a crime instigated and manipulated by someone else, someone still operating in the shadows of Sterling City. She called Maya, arranging to meet at her apartment. She laid out the evidence on the coffee table, printouts of messages, a timeline, the connection she'd found. Maya listened, her face pale, her eyes wide with disbelief and dawning horror. "So, it wasn't just a fight," Maya whispered, her voice choked. "He was there because someone sent him there. He was doing a job. He was being used." Maya, Sarah confirmed, her voice gentle but firm. "Exploited. He was a kid, probably saw it as easy money, or maybe was scared not to. And when things went wrong, the collector sent his enforcers. Marcus and Damien." Maya trailed off. "They weren't just attacking him. They were following orders." "It seems that way," Sarah said. "They were caught in the same web, forced into a terrible situation. That doesn't absolve them entirely of their actions, but it changes everything about the why, and it puts the real responsibility on the person orchestrating it." Tears streamed down Maya's face, a mixture of grief for her brother and a new, fierce anger towards the unseen figure who had used him and ruined the lives of two other young men. "Who is he?" Maya demanded, her voice shaking. "This collector?" "We have a name and a lot of evidence linking him to this network," Sarah said. "It's enough to go to the police officially now. It's enough to demand they reopen the investigation." The discovery hit Sarah with the force of a physical blow. The simple tragedy the city had accepted was a complex, chilling crime rooted in exploitation and control. Liam wasn't just a victim of youth violence. He was a victim of a calculated criminal operation that preyed on vulnerability. The implications were staggering. Two teenagers were serving time for a crime instigated and manipulated by someone else, someone still operating in the shadows of Sterling City. Part 5. The unending echo of the revelation brought a rush of conflicting emotions. There was a grim satisfaction in uncovering the truth, but it was overshadowed by the horrifying knowledge that true justice remained elusive. Sarah presented her findings to her editor, and the story, backed by the decrypted files and Sarah's meticulous reporting, exploded across Sterling City. The public reaction was a mixture of shock, anger, and a profound sense of betrayal. The police were forced to revisit the case. The evidence against the collector, whose real name was revealed to be quietly operating within the city's gray economy, was substantial. Arrests were made, not just of the collector, but of others involved in his network. Sarah sat with Maya again, months later, as the legal proceedings against the collector and his associates unfolded. "They got him," Maya said, her voice flat. "He's going to prison." "Yes," Sarah confirmed. "For racketeering, conspiracy, witness tampering. A lot of charges." "But not for Liam's murder," Maya said, her gaze fixed on something Sarah couldn't see. The legal link was difficult, Sarah explained, a familiar frustration in her voice. Proving he directly ordered them to kill Liam, rather than just secure the package by any means necessary, the defense argued it wasn't a direct order to kill. And the original guilty pleas by Marcus and Damien complicated everything. So, Marcus and Damien are still in prison for killing Liam, even though they were forced into it, and the man who forced them isn't being held fully responsible for Liam's death, Maya summarized, the injustice heavy in her tone. "Their cases are being reviewed," Sarah said. "With the new evidence of coercion, their sentences might be reduced, or they might get new trials." but it's a slow process. Years of their lives gone, Maya murmured, just like Liam's. She looked at Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for finding out, for not letting it stay buried. You were the one who wouldn't let it go, Maya, Sarah said. You knew something was wrong. Maya smiled faintly, a sad, weary expression. I just knew Liam. He wasn't meant to die like that. And those boys, they weren't monsters. Just kids caught in something terrible. The legal system struggled to connect his remote manipulation directly to the fatal knife thrust. Marcus and Damien remained incarcerated, their cases complicated by the new evidence. Their sentences might be reviewed in the future, but the years they had already served, the lives forever altered, could not be undone. Sarah Jensen continued to report on the fallout, on the city's struggle to confront the uncomfortable truths her investigation had revealed. The silence that had settled over Sterling after Liam's death was replaced by a difficult, often painful, conversation about its own hidden problems. City council meetings debated funding for youth programs, police tactics in underserved communities, and the need to address online exploitation. She met with Robert, the youth outreach worker, a few weeks after the collector's sentencing. It's a start, I guess, Robert said, looking out the window of his community center at kids playing basketball in a cracked asphalt court. Do you think it will make a difference? Sarah asked. For the collector? Yeah, he's off the streets, Robert said. But he wasn't the only one. And the reasons kids get into that life, those haven't gone away. Poverty, lack of hope, feeling invisible. He turned back to Sarah, his face etched with weariness. We got rid of one bad guy, but the soil that grew him, it's still here. And there are always new seeds blowing in. Break time equals 0. 7s/years later, Maplewood Park remains. People use it, but for those who know the story, a faint echo lingers among the trees, a reminder that some wounds never truly heal. The death of Liam Vance wasn't just a tragic statistic, a simple act of random violence. It was a window into the complex, often unseen forces that shape lives and end them prematurely in the quiet corners of seemingly ordinary cities. And the unsettling truth is the collector was just one man. The environment that created him, the vulnerabilities he exploited, the silence that protected him, those shadows still remain, waiting in the periphery of parks and playgrounds, a perpetual threat in the lingering dusk. The echo of that scream and the truth behind it will likely haunt Sterling City for generations.